Hello and welcome to the second episode of Crossing Borders with Always Next Year podcast. I'm your host of this segment, Shane Mead, and I'm joined by our Canadian friend, Connor Donald. Connor, how are you today?
Good. And how are you?
Man, I am awesome. We've had, I think, 5 or 6 different segments this week. We've had guest segments. We have followers calling in. Rob's been on a couple different shows this week. So it's been a really, really good week for ANYP podcast. And now we get our second segment, and I'm super pumped about that too. For all of our listeners who are just tuning in for the first time, as I mentioned, this is only our second episode of the Crossing Borders segment. Our goal with this is essentially to bring Philly sports and Philly sports Twitter 4 main arguments that are existing right now in that Twitterverse amongst all the big 4. We're going to bring our takes to those takes, and we're all pretty excited about that. So we are going to jump right into it. We are going to start with, and we rambled last time. We talked about this after the first show. We went quite in depth with some of the Flyers talk, but that is because we started as a Flyer podcast. So we're going to jump right into some of the Coach Q takes. Connor, first of all, Coach Q is off the market. As unfortunate as that is, Flyers Twitter has lost their damn mind. But we found one take in there that was, we think, probably the best, saying that Coach Q alone, whether or not we hired him or didn't, was not enough to fix the Philadelphia Flyers. And that kind of goes along with Ken's take from last week that they're a dog shit organization and one of the worst in hockey, which we both vehemently disagreed with. But it does beg the question, was Coach Q, or is any coach, enough to fix this team? What is your take on the Flyers coaching situation?
I personally do not. I agree with the tweet. I don't think that Coach Q is going to fix the ailments, nor do I think any coach will. I think it's all about getting the players to buy into the system that you have. I mean, you saw it right when Gordon took over this year after they fired Hackstall, that it looked like they were kind of buying into the system, but then they hit those snags and they started struggling again. And it just seems like a lot of the Flyers players just didn't seem to have a ton of confidence. Maybe it's like the new year, new me next year, and hopefully the Flyers completely turn around with whatever coach. I mean, I scour Twitter constantly and I'm looking all over the place. And as soon as a new name pops up, everyone's crying about the name. There is no name that I think everyone will agree on. You see, like, there's 5 or 6 different names floating around out there, and there's about probably 20% of people will say, I like this guy. 20% will say, I like that guy. But there's always at least 80% who are saying, oh, I don't like this guy because of this. I don't like this guy because of that. The latest name that I saw that I liked was Guy Boucher. I mean, love him or hate him, he's a defensive-minded coach. I like that. I think that we need to move. Clearly, the offensive minds aren't working, or whatever we might consider an offensive mind for the Flyers. But will a coach fix the ailments? Most certainly not. But I think people have to come to that point of realization where it's not about the coach, necessarily all about the coach. The players got to change too.
So, on one hand, I certainly agree. The players do have to buy into a system. They do have to show up and play each and every day. And there have been certain things that have followed the Philadelphia Flyers organization for beyond Hackstall, obviously beyond Gordon. And those things are very real and they are very concerning. That being said, you mentioned Guy Boucher, and so me and Steve had actually talked about this on a show really right when we first started. He was a guy that we both really, really liked. Now, he's dull as hell, very boring, but Steve literally mentioned it on our show a couple days ago on Who the Puck is Ryan Dingle, that he doesn't care, he just wants to win hockey games. And as boring as that system was, those players, for whatever reason, bought in. And because of things like that, I do think that it is a coach. Whether it would have been Coach Q, I mean, I don't think it would have been McClellan, but whether it would have been Tibbet, whether it would have been Woodcroft, which is an interesting name that Steve brought up, I think that each guy brings a little bit different of an element and something different and fresh to the organization. Because again, Philadelphia Flyers, and you know it and I know it, they've stayed like within that Flyer bloodline forever. They finally went outside that
Yep.
going with Chuck Fletcher. And I do believe that him going outside of that Flyer bloodline again to acquire a coach just continues to fuel that. We're breeding a new identity here in Philadelphia. And that new identity is most certainly going to start with a coach. It's going to be, of all the big names that are out there in free agency right now, of all the trade talk that is certainly going to swirl, of all the draft talk that's going to swirl, make no mistake about it. This offseason, this is all about the coach. This is all about finding the guy. And I think you are right, by the way. You said there may be 5 names, and each one of them has only about 20% support of the fan base. Whatever it ends up being, it needs to be 80, 90, 100% support from within that organization, from the guy who's cutting his checks all the way down to the players on the fourth line and in the AHL and in the ECH, everything. This is
With
all
with
about the coach.
with that in mind, though, I know you're talking about Chuck Fletcher and that changing, getting out of having Flyers people who've been associated with the Flyers forever. Uh, I don't want Chuck Fletcher digging back into the Minnesota bloodline either, because at the end of the day, they I kind of see what Fletcher had built in Minnesota as similar to what the Flyers currently have. So I don't want more mediocrity where we're getting to the playoffs and it's just the same Minnesota bloodline that he has going either. I think he's got to really show that he wants to make the change, and that means don't go back to the old Minnesota people that you know and love. Take a step outside of that comfort zone and do something for Flyers fans that is outside of Fletcher and outside of the Flyers organizations.
I think that is a very, very fair argument and point. You know, it is so easy for any of us to sit there and stay within our comfort zone, to stay within our wheelhouse and the things that we do know. But there is something to be said for the person that will make that risk and take that chance to go outside of that comfort zone, even if it's just a fraction of a percent, and go with that one outside thought, which would be a Woodcroft in this one for baby Steve. That's certainly something different. Um, you know, but you go ahead and you make a decision with a guy like that. You make a decision in free agency with people that don't necessarily have ties to either the organization or to you as a GM at any of your stops. I think you're telling not only Philadelphia, but you're telling the entirety of the NHL that you're looking to breed a new identity of Philadelphia Flyers hockey, a new way of Flyers hockey, and you're ready to win right now. You're ready to maximize the remaining years of Claude Giroux's core, where you're ready to maximize the Sean Couturiers and Shane Gostisbeheres if he remains throughout this offseason and into next season, and you're ready to groom the youth with an identity that says, we're the Philadelphia Flyers, and this is exactly who we are today, and it's exactly who we're going to be for the next 5 to 7 years. That is something that we need, because you've mentioned it, I've mentioned it on the show, Steve and Rob have mentioned it on the show. There is a complete lack of direction and unity in this organization. It seems like things are pulling from all different directions. And I'm going to bring it all the way back here to that coach or to the Coach Q thing. You know, people saying that he couldn't fix everything. No coach can fix everything. That's accurate. That
Nope.
being said, you do need someone to drive the goddamn car. And the person who's going to drive the car for the Philadelphia Flyers is not Chuck Fletcher. It is not Claude Giroux. It's not Carter Hart. It is the next man to sit behind the bench and sit there and put together the very best forward groups and line and defensive pairings that you possibly can, and utilize the correct changes in game and have these players, both the vets and the youth, buying into a system. It is the coach. This offseason, make no mistake about it, is 100% a success or failure based on the coaching hire that we will see.
Absolutely. And I mean, it has to change. That culture has to change. The Flyers are painful and boring as hell right now. And
They
that's
are.
got to change because Look at the Sixers, look at the Eagles, look at the Phillies. You either got to get on the train or Philly is going to kick you off, and they're going to kick you off hard.
It's crazy to sit here and think too. If you truly do look at things, and if you just look objectively, and you look on paper, all four of these teams in the city have a pretty decent, if not fantastic, core of vets and a well of prospects. Like the oldest team, we just had a Kelly Green Hour segment tonight, me and Elle. That's an old football team. They're one of the oldest in the NFL. But some of the youth that are still there, guys like Carson Wentz, like Sidney Jones, if he can pull it together from last week's episode that we talked about, there's so much talent there that is young. Like they have, all four of these teams have the ability to sustain greatness for the next decade. Like we could be the next Boston. And that's just crazy to sit here and think about, and to sit here and realize, shit, if the Flyers mess up this coaching tree, they will so quickly fall from relevancy in the city of Philadelphia and get lost in the mix with teams, with super teams like what the 76ers are doing right now, with all of the excitement that surround the Philadelphia Phillies, you know, and then obviously, Philadelphia is a football town. Elle will tell you that. Everyone will tell you that. Obviously with the success of the Eagles, the Flyers very quickly could just remove themselves from relevancy and no one will freaking care. And that is why it's so damn critical to find the right guy behind the bench this offseason. You can't miss again.
Agreed.
So we used it in that in that argument there. We mentioned the Philadelphia Phillies. So we're going to roll into the next take, and there's a couple different things. There's a couple different layers to this take that we're going to kind of talk about here. But Gabe Kapler, in a post-game interview after Zach Eflin's last start, had mentioned if Zach Eflin continues to pitch the way that he is pitching, and make no mistake about it, he has been the Philadelphia Phillies' best pitcher outside of Adam Morgan this entire year. He said that he may be looking at 3 Cy Young candidates in his rotation. That's hilarious. I don't know where to really start with this, so I am going to pass this one on to you. Obviously, he's talking about Nola with last year, but Nola hasn't looked right. He's talking about the history of Jake Arrieta, but let's face it, Jake Arrieta is not the Jake Arrieta of 2015. And now he's throwing an Eflin in there. And Eflin, for as good as he can be, he can also be that damn bad. He is like the Braden Shen of pitchers. He's great for 5 starts, then terrible for 2 months. Then he's great for 5 starts and terrible for 2 months. I don't know what the hell, and I love Gabe Kapler, but I don't know what in the hell he is talking about when he can confidently say to the media and to the people outside his clubhouse that day that he could be potentially looking at 3 Cy Young candidates in his starting rotation. You got to take the reins on this one. I'm letting you take the start.
Absolutely, and it must pain you to think that Morgan is a top pitcher for the Phillies right now. That must really
it's ridiculous.
pain you. But besides that, I completely agree. I think this is a point we'll agree on. Like I actually tweeted out as soon as I saw that we were doing our quote unquote due diligence on Baumgartner, that I tweeted out that every year we're looking for that breakout guy, and every year a guy breaks out and then a pitcher regresses. We have Eflin breaking out, Pivetta regressing this year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to remain that way? No, because, quite honestly, I do not trust our pitching staff as far as I can throw them, and I completely understand why people are upset with that. The Phillies pitching staff and that statement alone enrages me, because he's putting that hype around Eflin that was there for Pivetta, and look what Pivetta's doing. Look at what he's doing to us. He's breaking our hearts. And do I trust Eflin's consistency? No. Do I trust Pivetta stays this bad? No. Do I think he breaks out? It's a little early to tell on that one. But I think, like I tweeted when I saw the news about Baumgartner, it's enough about this breakout star, enough about this breakout arm. Let's get the arms that we need to win, because we're going to waste the talent we got. You look at us, we can't, obviously there's going to be nights where we're going to score 3 or 4 runs, but there's going to be the nights where we're going crazy and scoring 8 and 10 runs, but you can't expect to have 8 to 10 runs scored every single night. And like you said, obviously Nola's not looking like himself. Arrieta is not looking like he looked in spring, where he looked like he was going to come out and be a Cy Young winner. But I mean, I think we need to get this rotation right, and at the same time, we gotta get that bullpen right because as we're seeing, we don't have a true closer. Robertson is not meant for the closing role. I would never trust Neris in the ninth inning. It scares me that he puts him in there. But to get back to the point, I think we need to go out. I mean, people judge Keuchel, but go get Keuchel. If the price is right, go get Baumgartner. It clearly may not be the time for Pavetta and Eflin. This is the big stage. You've built this team to win. Enough of this quote unquote breakout, potential Cy Young people. Get the actual proven Cy Young potential winners in place with the skill that we have on the offensive side of the ball.
So I'm gonna preach one word that Philadelphia absolutely loathes to hear. Patience. Patience, patience, patience. We all been trusting processes now for years amongst each one of these teams. And it's so easy to get lost up in the 8 and 10 runs that you mentioned because this offense has the ability to do that each and every night out. They're doing it right now in Miami. That offense is going to be explosive. Here is my very, very quick version of this breakdown here and why I would not be beating down the doors to go and sign a Keuchel. I certainly would not sign Kimbrel. Here's why. One, you're in year one right now of this new look Philadelphia Phillies. They're close to that luxury tax. The penalties on those luxury taxes go up exponentially each and every year that you don't reset that line. And I don't know how many people know that. But if you go out there and you sign Keuchel right now, that means you're not going and getting anybody at the deadline. That means if Keuchel doesn't work out, you can't go for someone who's proving to work out through the first 3 months of the season. That's a problem for me. Don't get Kimbrel. The guy is just don't do it. Just don't go get Kimbrel. The guy's gone down each and every 2 years ago. I think he had a great year, but outside of that, 3 of his last 4 years have been questionable at best. He's lost velocity. I mean, he's not a closer I would trust. And so by no means am I saying, and I'm 100% on board with you, Robertson, Neris, I want them nowhere near the ninth inning. Robertson can do it. It's just not, obviously it's not his role. But this team right now, and what Matt Klentak has to consider is they, as good as they are and as good as this offense is, they are more than just one pitching piece away. They're probably 2 consistent starters away from a true World Series contender, and they're certainly a ways away in the bullpen with the consistency that we have yet to see from those arms in that bullpen, except for Adam freaking Morgan and Pat Neshek too. We can't knock him entirely. He is a little bit of a nut job, but he's a damn good pitcher. The point being here is, in this first year of what this is, you got to see this shit through. You got to see it out. And if look, and Bumgarner's looked like hell so far this year. If he gets himself right through the next 2-3 months, make the trade. You're still under the tax threshold. You're good to go. That's your acquisition. Move on in life. If he doesn't look good, okay, go look for Robbie Ray. Go look for Cole Hamels. Go look for John Lester. Do what you need to do. But evaluate the guys who have done it for 3 months. Going out there and signing Keuchel today, you may not see him pitch in a major league game for 6 weeks. And when you do, it will be his first major league start this season versus a guy at the deadline who will have had 14, 15, 18 starts. I would trust the 18 starts in the current year versus a guy who's making start 1. Doesn't matter what his history is, even his recent history. Someone as recently as successful as a Dallas Keuchel. Bringing it all the way back to the Cy Young portion of this, since I'm just ranting about money right now in the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Eflin stuff is okay. He's just deceptive enough to make it work, but that's why he's streaky. His deception only works so long. Once these teams get this tape and realize, all right, he's sticking with this pitch that right now. This is his hot pitch. The good thing is he has developed two additional pitches this year, so that actually may help him. So Gabe might not be full off on an Eflin Cy Young talk right now. Certainly not going to win it, but could be in conversation for a really improved pitcher. But when you look at Nola, he's not right. And when you look at Jake Arrieta, I mean, tonight he's pitched okay, but he's going up against the Double A and Triple A Marlins. That guy's not a Cy Young
Yeah.
winner. He's not missing bats. His velocity's improved. His movement's there, but his movement's breaking so early that there's no deception to it. You can see that out of his hand right away, and it's not fooling anybody. No one's chasing a damn thing out of Jake Arrieta's hand. I think he went into the seventh tonight, and I don't know that I saw much more than I think Alfaro went after a high fastball, and Anderson went off a sinker down and away. And I think other than that, those are the only two pitches I saw that someone chased. So obviously the deception is not following Jake Arrieta right now. He's a different guy. So no, there's no three Cy Young pitchers in a rotation. This is Gabe being full on, I'm going to support my guys so goddamn much, which by the way, on like tangentially, he kind of ripped in the most like Gabe Kapler way, semi-positive-ish. He definitely ripped Pavetta the other night for being dog shit, and I really appreciated that.
Oh,
I don't know what your
absolutely.
thought was, but I
Yeah.
love the fact
Oh,
that he was
yeah.
honest.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and he definitely was. He definitely was. So, I mean, hopefully that lights a fire under Pavetta, and hearing him talk about three Cy Young, potential Cy Young people, however crazy it may seem, maybe that's enough to get Pavetta lit. But I mean, you talk about let's be the next Boston and let's be the next city of championships. How many processes did you see Boston trust in? How
Yeah,
much patience do we have to have? That is, I preach patience, but eventually the line's got to be drawn. Everyone talks about, oh, we're going to be the next Boston. How many times did you hear them trust in processes and preach impatience?
in my defense of that argument, the Patriots have been winning every goddamn year throughout this process, so they had a championship every year. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot of time for patience there.
Well,
Um,
same other ways. The Red Sox, the Bruins, whoever you want to look at, they've all been winning for forever.
for the
So
last
what
two
process?
decades. But that's a good point. Yeah, and I would be lying to you if I sat there and said that I am watching as closely to these processes or eras of Boston as I certainly am in my own home city here in Philadelphia. But that being said, Boston there, I think it's easier to sit there if you have one team that's winning. I think it's kind of easier to sit there. I don't know that patience is exactly the right word, but like there's an understanding, that well, you said it. There's four fucking teams in that city that are for the last two decades have been contenders. I think we could probably count on one hand the amount of times that any of those teams either didn't make the playoffs or weren't incredibly successful. That's pretty insane. So I don't know that they have exactly had the process. You're probably right. Um, but in Philadelphia, things just don't work out that way. You know, that's a damn shame. Now I'm going to be super upset for the duration of the night thinking about how good Boston sports are. Man, that's upsetting.
Well,
Um,
you'll think about that next time you're talking about patience. You'll be like,
listen,
I want to be Boston. I want to be fucking Boston.
so look, I'm also one of the least patient humans on the planet, so it's ironic that I'm sitting here saying to preach patience, but I think I'm looking at it at this big picture thing, mainly in the Phillies sense. I don't know that I necessarily have that patience with the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm kind of done with their shit. Um, but with the Phillies, I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in the excitement of the now and to kind of put blinders on the situation as a whole and the vision of that franchise as a whole. Think about it. If they went and hit the luxury tax this year, and then I think it goes up like 125% the penalty in year 2, and then I think it goes up 215 or 218% in year 3. That's a lot of goddamn money. And while we have money to spend, obviously with TV deals, and the marketability of a big city like Philadelphia, that's the difference of saying, hey, Francisco Lindor is available in 3 years because this dude's not going back to Cleveland. Cleveland's already all but said that they can't afford him. Now the Phillies can't go get him because they're paying an ass load of penalty money to a luxury tax. I would rather use and start that luxury tax cycle in year 2 or in year 3 of what this situation is and allow for the financial flexibility and freedoms to make the moves that we need to give us sustained winning. I don't want to win once in these 13 years of Bryce Harper. I want to win 3, 4, 5, 6 times in this era of baseball. And you don't do that by fucking up with money. Bryce Harper is signing a contract or signed a contract that pays him $26 million a year. Almost every single night he takes the baseball field, someone will be paid more than him per season. And that's fucking insanity. He did that to allow for financial freedom to continue to put pieces around him. Let's not fuck that up by going out and signing Dallas Keuchel or Craig Kimbrell and paying an asinine amount and then going into the luxury tax because then we also had to acquire a Madison Bumgarner or a Robbie Ray or a Cole Hamels or a John Lester. It's fucked. You just can't do it, in my opinion, in year 1. Year 2, year 3, well, okay. Those circumstances are a little bit different. But right now, that's just not the move for me. I don't know how we started talking about money when talking about 3 Cy Young pitchers, but I feel like this is a really good argument.
You were the one going on about money. It's not
Yeah,
your
yeah,
money in
yeah.
the end, so don't you worry.
Yeah, everyone says that. Everyone says that. But when I got to sit there and pay damn near $900 to go to opening day, I'm gonna be a little pissed off if it's not a $900 ticket worth paid price admission product. I'm gonna be pissed. That being said, to the 3 Cy Young comments, Gabe, you're bold, dude. I appreciate it. You're moronic in that particular statement, but I admire you for it. Um, we're pretty good on time before we get to our last one. So if you don't mind, let's actually dive into each one of those pitchers real quick. We'll give them each like a minute or so. The likelihood. Why don't you rank the likelihood for you right now of pitchers in the Philadelphia Phillies rotation to be in the top 3 for her Cy Young this year, given the way they've pitched?
Well, if we're going on given the way they've pitched, obviously you have to have Eflin at 1, but I'm still gonna go with Nola at 1 because obviously just based on the way they pitched, it's not feasible that he continues with that pace. I just don't
Agreed.
think so. I would put Eflin second because honestly, ever since the signing of Jake Arrieta, I don't trust the guy to be the Jake Arrieta, the dollar amount Jake Arrieta we signed. So I'd probably go Nola, Eflin, and then I'd put Arrieta last because, like you said, his stuff's not there. He's not that guy who stands out. He's not flashy. He's not a Cy Young Award winner. He flashes, and at the
I
end of the
like that.
day, Arrieta doesn't flash. He just doesn't.
I like that argument, and that's the exact order that I would have given as well. I think that, and I think you mentioned it earlier. I think with each of those guys, they're never going to be as, they're never going to, like, Eflin's not going to be as great as he is pitching once. And Aaron Nola throughout this stretch, he's never going to be consistently this erratic. I mean, he's given up home runs at a higher clip at any point in his career. He's missing, he's missing the corners at a higher clip than at any point in his career. He's finding total plate coverage at this point, which is a pain in the balls, and he can't control anything. His pitches aren't quite as sharp as they were. Uh, but that being said, that's not going to be that way forever. So,
No, absolutely.
I do think that that's a turnaround that you can expect. Eflin to continue with this kind, and it's not even dominance, but with this kind of consistency. I don't know that I buy it, but I'm hopeful. Look, he was a very highly touted prospect. He was very highly thought of. People were making calls about him. At the deadline last year, we heard about the Machado thing. Machado for Eflin straight up. I don't know how much truth there was to that. If they didn't do that, I think they're crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's nuts. Nuts to even think that that would have been offered up on the table. It's like
that's kind of my
something you'd
thought.
offer in MLB The Show
And
and
then
hope
they
that
would
that
immediately turn it down.
exactly. My thoughts exactly.
And then on the Jake Arrieta thing, I think what you just said there is pretty perfect. There is something about a Cy Young candidate that flashes, and I think that's the right way to say it. And he doesn't. He doesn't miss bats. He's pitching to contact at a higher clip than he ever has in his career. And it's not to say that pitchers don't have to reinvent themselves every 3 to 5 years. They do. You're not always going to throw 100 miles an hour. Not everyone's Nolan Ryan throwing 98 into your late 30s, early 40s. Not everyone's that guy. And there's a reason Nolan Ryan was Nolan freaking Ryan. It's crazy, but Jake Arrieta is not that guy.
No.
What I would say is that it's a encouraging sign that his velocity is back. What is less than encouraging is the rate that he misses bats is terrible, and he doesn't have the same deception anymore. And I think it goes to this doesn't flash for us, and I think that's a good way of saying it.
Yep.
You got anything else on the Phillies before we move into the Sixers take?
Nope. I think we hit on it pretty good tonight. We'll leave Gabe and his Cy Young candidates alone for now.
For now, but we will revisit this one the next time Pavetta gets blown out again. um, but so the Sixers take, you found the article and you sent it to me, and this is like 5 shows in a row that goddamn alarm has gone off, and I have to apologize to these listeners. Shit, that has got to be so loud. I'm sorry, guys. um, but you sent me this article, and I immediately, so it's from Spike Eskin, and for those of you who don't know, I mean, everyone's got to know who Spike. If you listen to our show, you know who Spike Eskin is. Um, but he obviously has the rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast, the Art of the Take pod, and he works for WIP. So, but he is full. He's very much so like his dad in that way, and he puts out this article, and it is a little kind of satirical. I don't know that you can go wholeheartedly at this, but when you sent it to me, I reacted, man. I was like, Spike, 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 Spike. What the hell are you saying? And that's the perfect formula for a take because it pissed me off. So well done, Spike. Basically, the point of this article was saying that the 76ers would have a better chance of getting to the finals if they never went star hunting. That's if they never pursued LeBron James. It's if they never pursued Jesus Christ, Toronto Raptor right now. I'm blanking on his name. How the hell, Leonard?
By Leonard.
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard. You know, and then it's to say that they never went and signed Jim or traded for Jimmy, and they never traded for Tobias Harris. He believes that with the process era pieces that remained, the Robert Covingtons and Dario Saric's and Landry Shamit's, and even Markel Fultz, if you want to throw that in there, that they would have a better chance right now at getting to the NBA Finals than what they do with both Jimmy and Toby. And holy shitballs, even just talking about it has got me riled up. What is your take on Spike's take from that article of process era Sixers over? And we've been talking about it all week. Ever since you sent that to me, we put it in TJ's One of Us. I put it in the fan piece of TJ's One of Us. We're all talking about it right now. It pissed me off so much. So what is your take on the Spike take?
Well, first of all, I love that it got you guys talking because I mean that's what we want to do. Like that's
Oh
what I
yeah.
want to be. Like I don't want to say I want to be Spike and have the entirety of Philadelphia hate me, but I want people to react like you just reacted. I mean, you look at Spike's Twitter and it is blowing up with I don't know how he still has a house standing anywhere near in the state of Pennsylvania, but the it, the article is crazy. It was laughable. I laughed and I was like, I have to send this to you guys because you
Again,
guys
it's a
see
little
this.
satirical.
It very much is. You know what? And like just think all my biggest thing when I saw this was the stat that's been brought up since we traded since we got Tobias Harris. 5 starters with 17 plus points per game.
Yep.
You would never get that with Covington, with Sarge. As great of a year as Shamit had, hitting triples at the highest rate of a rookie in NBA history, as great as that is to watch, we would never have this amazing stat to look at. That Butler and Harris and Redick and Simmons and Embiid average 17 plus points per game. It's crazy. You look at Covington. Covington had averaged 11. Sarge averaged 11, and their field goal percentages versus Butler and Harris. If you've looked at them, they're not pretty. So it is very satirical. I think it was meant as more of a satirical, sarcastic, get people riled up type thing. But
Worked.
I think with the star hunting, we are in the best position to succeed since the process started. The process that you so love. I think that we're actually in the best position at the end of this year. What happens with Butler and Harris? I mean, obviously, we're all mixed on that. I think we have to get Harris back. Butler, I mean,
For the right
toss up
price.
for me on that one. But the thing that came to mind and stays in my mind, ingrained in my mind, is that we are one of the only teams in NBA history to have 5 starters with 17 plus points per game. That would never happen if we didn't go star hunting. So that's my take.
So I'm going to give Kev a little bit of credit, a little bit of love here. So Kev is we split time as the host of our TJ's One of Us segment. And he's the most positive Sixers fan that I know, and I may be the most critical Sixers fan that I know. So we do balance off each other quite a bit. And one thing that he has said time and time again, he is not worried for these playoffs. He's not worried at all. Now, he should be now with the Joel Embiid news
I
that
was gonna say,
has come out.
you're not
So,
worried a bit now?
well, damn it, I was. But, well, I was for different reasons. Obviously not the Joel Embiid, but now that's why I'm worried. But one thing that stuck out to me that he had said was, talent on paper, looking at it, during the regular season in the NBA, 82 games, okay. But when you get to the playoffs, if you have that much talent and that much star power on paper to go and put out there on the court, because they're all going to be playing 38 to 40 minutes a night now. Those guys, save for maybe Redick, will probably sit there at 28 to 32. But over the regular season, those guys are playing 30, 32 minutes. You don't think that it's a big improvement to have 8 more minutes of Joel Embiid, if healthy, 8 more minutes of Ben Simmons, 8 more minutes of Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy Butler, we hope. The playoffs are a different time and style of basketball. That's going to win. That's going to win most series. If you have, as you mentioned, 5 starters who are all going to near 40 minutes, or 4 of the 5 near 40 minutes a night, and you're going up against the Brooklyn freaking Nets and you're concerned, you're goddamn crazy to sit there and think that team would have a lesser chance at success than a team that would feature Robert Covington, and I love him, and Dario Saric, and I love him too, and Landry Shamet, awesome. But just as you mentioned, there is, you know what, we'll use your Arietta term, there is nothing flashy about Robert Covington and Dario Saric and a 6-man shooter in Landry Shamet and a head case in Markelle Fultz. And I was a pretty big Markelle Fultz supporter, but I'm coming down off that ladder now. That guy's nuts.
I didn't even include him in the discussion. I didn't even think he was worth bringing up.
That's because
if we must talk about him, then he is a process piece. So we should probably at least make mention. Thank you for your visit to Philly. But
yeah, thanks. We hope you enjoyed your stay. But yeah, there is there is no doubt in my mind that with the roster as currently constructed right now, you have a far greater success rate at getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, at getting to the NBA Finals with these 5 getting 40 minutes a night versus having to sit there and say, hey, 2 or 3 guys are going to go 40 minutes a night. If you want to put Joe, Ben, and it would have been Robert Covington. and then have to rely on 5 to 6 pieces on the bench, or a couple starters and a couple bench players of those 5 to 6 to all contribute. Hell no. Have you seen our bench? That shit is not going to work out. Zaire Smith is the most important person on our bench right now. You know how fuck that is? That kid is 4.5 games under his belt. 4.5 goddamn games.
He
You know
wasn't
how
even
much
supposed to play. Was not
not
even. They
supposed to
didn't
play?
even think he was going to play this year.
They thought he was gonna freaking die. I don't know if that was how severe it was, but he lost all that weight and he was in the hospital forever. I didn't know that. Ridiculous. Um,
I
and
just
it
saw
was
the
just a few
article
months
today
ago.
about it. It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
saw it yesterday. It's just a few months ago, and now he's going to be one of the most integral pieces to the 76ers playoff puzzle. That's wild. And here's the thing. We only have to see him for 8 to 10 minutes on the court for these playoffs. How much do you think we'd have to see him if we didn't have Jimmy and if we didn't have Toby? He'd be needing 20, 25 minutes a night out of that kid, who 3 months ago could have been dead. That's insanity. So no, Spike, thank you so much for your goddamn article. You drove me crazy. Well done. I would applaud you, but it's going to break the goddamn microphone. That thing pissed me off so much. And Philly's Twitter's going crazy about it.
Yep, he got exactly what he wanted. He got the reaction he wanted. Although apparently Star Hunt in Brett Brown's eyes might not be good enough to beat the Nets based on comments I'm hearing. But I
Yeah,
mean,
that pissed me off too.
you as a Brett Brown apologist, I would hope that this kind of irked you a bit to hear what he said.
A bit?
Come on, it's the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh my sweets. I wanted a white knuckle side on him. I was so pissed off. In my I have never outside like that's something I would expect like Pete McCann or Ryan Sandberg to say. But you're Brett Brown. You're the coach of the 3 seed, back-to-back 50 win seasons. Now I understand he's pissed off about the Joel Embiid situation. He's pissed off at the medical team. He's pissed off at the lack of information that he's got. He's probably pissed off that his rotations have changed every other day based on the people that they're telling him to rest, when to rest them. I'm sure his job is not freaking easy, but you can't go out there and sit there and say that dumb shit right now and then go into your locker room and say, hey guys, you ready to practice? Fucking no,
Absolutely no.
coach.
Like, just take it back to last week when we said if Brown was an Eagles coach, if Doug Peterson ever made this
Oh
comment
my
heading
God.
into a matchup against, let's just call it the Dallas Cowboys, I don't think Peterson would even get to coach that game. He would be fired.
I
He
think
would
you're
be
right.
fired. You got to watch what you say.
And in a town like Philadelphia, dude, you're digging your own grave. If they go out, I don't even care. If they go out there and they don't sweep Brooklyn, say they win in 5, he still may get fired after the damn series. I don't know. But you can't go out there and say dumbass things like that. That pissed me off so much, man, because I love Brett Brown. But
That
damn, that
that
pissed me
that
off.
when I heard that comment, I was like, that is spoken like a true man whose job is really on the line. He needs
Oh yeah.
some success this playoffs, and the apologist can stand by him. But man, I said it last week. This man needs to win, and he needs to win more than against the Nets. He needs to go into the next round against, be it the Raptors, whoever we're probably going to get, and you got to beat them because I don't even think that semifinals is far enough. I think you got to get to that conference finals, or he might not have a job next year.
I think that's probably more accurate now than ever after those comments. And I think that just like you mentioned, he's a guy who probably knows it. He's heard it from Philly. He's heard it from the fans. He's heard it from the media. I'm sure he's hearing it to some degree in the locker room, no matter how much camaraderie and cohesiveness we believe is in there. I'm sure he's getting it there too. You know, they've made his job a difficult one. You mentioned it last week on the show. You don't know how the man's got hair. After this week and after those comments, I don't know how he has hair. I don't know how he has a pulse. I don't know how he's not going home and drinking himself to sleep. And he might be, who the hell knows? But still,
There will
that
be,
guy is nuts.
but for now I'll let you guys continue to apologize for him, and we'll see what happens. We'll talk about this in 2 or 3 months.
All right. Um, so while we're sitting here and apologizing for different people, we're closing this segment out with this final take here. It's an Eagles take. The original take was saying that Carson Wentz will go down as the most important athlete during this decade of just excellence of Philadelphia sports, or expected excellence of Philadelphia sports, that Carson Wentz will be the most important athlete in the city. And we've talked about this a little bit, prior to the show, which is why we decided to put this one forth, because I fucking love who you're going with. So because I love who you're going with and because I know it's going to irk people, I'm going to give mine first. Is that cool?
You go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to agree with Twitter, because you are not the quarterback of the most popular team in the city. And I know if El was sitting next to me right now, he'd be laughing, sitting here saying, damn it, I knew you were an Eagles fan first. And I support all Philadelphia sports teams. Everyone knows I'm a Philadelphia Phillies guy first and foremost, but damn it, I'm not blind. This city's a football town. It always will be. And the quarterback of that team is always going to be the most important athlete in the city. And that is Carson goddamn Wentz. And Carson Wentz needs to bring another championship here to Philadelphia. And I think that he is kind of that piece. I'm going to end mine there, because I need you to get yours out. I need the people to hear this, because this is the best thing I'm going to hear ever. Connor, go.
All right, so I'm going with Claude Giroux.
Yes.
Love me or hate me, I'm going with Claude Giroux. You know what? I love the Eagles. I love Carson Wentz. I love Joel Embiid, and by all means, they are extremely important athletes to Philadelphia. But I got to go with Claude Giroux. First of all, the statement of this athlete or an elite athlete, it's so confusing. There's so many stereotypes. I find it so overrated. And what better person to pick as the most important Philly athlete than the most underrated Philly athlete?
Still unappreciated.
After everything. I mean, I listed some stats that I've seen come up throughout this year, and like the current players with consecutive 85 plus point seasons. It's Sidney Crosby, Claude Giroux. You look at, he has 7 20-goal seasons. He's the 12th Flyer to do it. He has 5 seasons of 50 assists, second all-time only to Bobby Clark. 38 game-winning goals, which puts him at 9th in Flyers history. This stuff is crazy. To think about these stats. And I think that all too often this athlete talk is all to do with the what a person physically brings to the team. But I think that Claude Giroux is most important, because you talk about the mess the Flyers are in right now. Could you imagine? Take Claude Giroux away. Take that captain that we have had. I can't even imagine what the Flyers would be like right now. He is the most important athlete. It's indescribable what he has done for the Flyers. And he's a top competitor in Philly and in the NHL. He's still so underrated in Philly, outside of Philly, all across the NHL. He's so underrated. You have to look more than just the physical factors. You got to look at the psychological factors, his disciplined mentality. At the end of the day, you look at the mentality of certain players. Some of the stuff Embiid says blows my mind. I'm like, you are an elite athlete, and you're seriously going to say that. You're going to seriously say that. And Carson Wentz, I mean, that could go down as Ike Reese's most painful thing to admit he might have been wrong on, if Carson Wentz ends up continuing to get hurt. Because it is important, again, Claude Giroux, he doesn't miss time. He's a machine. And that's why I got to go with Claude Giroux as the most important Philly athlete. And I mean, I know we're a football town, and I mean, the fact that Harper's right on the outside of this discussion, but no one even considers Claude Giroux. When I saw the poll and stuff, it's like he doesn't even exist in the city. But
he was left off so many polls.
Exactly. He is so vitally important, and people just don't understand. I think we think too much of the physical athlete. But just imagine for a minute the last 5 years without Claude Giroux as a Philadelphia Flyer, without him as our captain. You think it's a mess right now?
That's so I cannot wait for Rob to listen to the end of this segment, because he will tell you, he mentioned it on, Who the Puck is Ryan Dingle earlier this week. Claude Giroux, great hockey player, terrible captain. I'm against that. I think Claude Giroux is not only a great player but a great captain as well, for all the reasons that you have said and more. The thing that I found so interesting is because when you said Claude Giroux, and I'm not prepared to say that he wasn't on my radar, because that's certainly not the case. I began to sit there and look at who I believed was the most crucial athlete for each of the four teams. And then I kind of looked at the city as a big picture. I said, all right, well, if I was to put a pie graph up right now in terms of the interest and overall, just excitement of the fan bases, there's only a small sliver there that is Claude Giroux and the Philadelphia Flyers, comparatively to the excitement that is the Philadelphia Phillies right now, to the championship level of basketball that the 76ers could be playing right now, and then the obvious Philadelphia Eagles that are probably taking up 50% of the fans' time right now. And then I sit there and see that sliver that is the Flyers, and I think, nah, I can't choose Claude Giroux. And then I hear your argument, and damn it, if I didn't spend the next 3 days saying Claude Giroux really could be the most integral athlete in Philadelphia, damn you, Connor. And I just sit here and keep thinking about it. And I think about it because you're right. If you look for 5 freaking years, in the past 5 years, the Flyers may not even be in goddamn Philadelphia anymore without him. There may be no one showing up at the Wells Fargo Center, and people
I
don't
would,
realize that.
and I would love to hear who Rob would like to have seen be the captain for those years.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, what is he going to go with? Andrew McDonald? Maybe he's going to go with Andrew McDonald. But you're going to tell me that anybody else was even worthy of being put on that pedestal to be
Yeah,
given the C?
definitely not. And I think the most interesting thing about that is when I sat there and thought about it, I sat there and said, the Philadelphia Phillies are going to be good for a long period of time because of the superstars acquired and because of some of the homegrown talent that are there. And they're all young and they're going to be good for a while and they're exciting right now. That's great. The Eagles just won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago and they have a potential, multiple MVP caliber quarterback in Carson Wentz. And it's a football town. That's all well and good. Then you look at the 76ers and you look and you say, damn, you have two of the most exciting superstars in the sport, both, under 25 years old. Okay, it's all well and good. Now you have the Philadelphia Flyers, and you have one of the most underappreciated athletes, not only in Philadelphia, but possibly in sports history. Like, that's the level of dismissiveness that Philadelphia has towards Claude Giroux. And he's about to sit here and captain a team that has, for the first time in certainly in our lifetimes, and probably extending even beyond that, a real goaltender with two more real goaltenders to come. And Felix Sandstrom, who played great tonight, by the way, and then, Ustimenko, who has played great this season. We have three potential goaltenders when we've never had one in our lifetime that we could sit there and bank on. And then you have the Morgan Frost, and you have their their deep prospect pool, and you have guys who are there right now, like the Sanheims and the Ghosts and the Sean Couturiers and Nolan Patrick's if he gets his head right, and Travis Konechny, and then you sit there and who's the one driving that car as a player, not necessarily the coach, but as a player. It's a guy with the C. It's Claude Giroux. He's making it all happen, and he has the ability to not single-handedly, but basically single-handedly make this a championship ready city for 4 straight teams. So the Claude Giroux thing, man, I wouldn't have had the balls to pull the trigger and make that my take, in my opinion, but damn it, you did, and I applaud you. That's a solid pick.
Good, and I hope I hear people give me some hate on Twitter. I
Well,
am perfectly, by all means, I will take it because I was a Flyers fan at heart from the beginning, but I do see the importance of a Wentz and an Embiid to the teams and everything. So by no means, no disrespect to them, but I gotta stick with Drew.
I dig it. I dig it. And when we tag this episode, when we post it and publish it, you got to tag Rob, and that's got to be the headline of what this sub article is called, or this sub publication of this is going to be called, because that's pretty. Like I said, that one pissed me off, but in a really good way. And it only pissed me off because I wasn't the one to sit there and pull the trigger. So again, well done. Before we sign off for this one, do you have any final thoughts on any of those takes or anything else Philadelphia sports related?
No, no, I think you know what? I think we've hit on a lot of good points tonight, and I think I can I sleep knowing I've bashed the right people, and I've actually been proud for the right people in Philadelphia as well. So I think that's it for now.
I love it. I love it. This has been a lot of fun for the second episode of Crossing Borders here at ANYP. Just a reminder, you can always rate and review the podcast on Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to drop us a rating and review. We are going to continue to say this because you people still do not give written reviews, but just the stars. The next written review that goes out gets an autographed picture of Rob's face. We mean it. It's going to happen, and it's going on your fridge. You're going to want it. He's a handsome man. Beyond that, we're doing all different types of giveaways. We're doing merchandise giveaways, ticket giveaways. I have to sing something and post a video because I've lost a bet to Rob. And if you want to save a life, no pressure at all. But if you would like to save a life, Baby Steve, Whiskey Schmitty, Steve Schmidt of the podcast, he's going to go sober for a month if we get 150 reviews. I'm not saying you're going to save his life, but it might be damn close. So tell your friends and family to rate the goddamn podcast. We would appreciate it. And Baby Steve's liver would certainly appreciate it too. For Connor tonight and for me, the host of this, Shane. Oh, you know what? Before I sign off, Connor, because people are going to need to see you on Twitter because you do have all these damn takes. Connor, what is your Twitter handle before I forget?
At Connor10, give me a follow, and like I said, give me some hate for Claude Drew, but tell me I'm not right. Tell me I'm not right.
I can't wait to read the mentions and comments in this tweet. You can also find me at Shane_Mead, and please also find the podcast at ANY Podcast. You can find all of our work through there and all of our announcements through there, and regularly we do tweet through that account as well. So again, be sure to rate and review that podcast, follow us there, and then subscribe to our website. Connor's got a bunch of good articles up. LJ's got good articles up. Rob just put a good article up. It's www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com, and that's going to be it for Crossing Borders with ANYP. I am Shane, and for Connor, good night, and we'll see you guys next week.